for greater health. And I know you want us to be in good health, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and we invite your presence here this afternoon as we learn together and as we share. And we ask these things in Jesus' name, amen. So this afternoon, we're having one presentation. Lana Young is a nurse practitioner, and she can maybe tell you a little more about where she does that, since I don't know off the top of my head. But she's going to share with us. She's, as you can see, on crutches, so she's going to have the luxury of sitting down to present. But we're grateful, and as it says on the screen, Lana's going to be talking about rest and relationships. So once she... So Lana, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. We appreciate it.
All right, I'm glad you guys could make it. It was kind of funny that he asked me to do this because I, at the time, thought that I wasn't doing really good at either, and praise God, He gives us mercies, right? Sometimes we end up ending up in a restful situation. I kind of wonder if that was God saying, hey, you need to settle down a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about valuing rest and relationships. I am a nurse practitioner. I've been for 13 years. I've been a nurse for over 32. So I've been in the medical field for quite some time. I most recently became certified in functional medicine, and that was probably the best education that I've had. And that was, yeah, so Functional Medicine Academy Certified Practitioner. MSN is Master's in Science of Nursing, and then Advanced Registered Nurse Practitioner. I'm board certified in family practice. I do have my own practice here in Spirit Lake. I work there part-time Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then I also work down in Coeur d'Alene at a clinic where we do stem cell injections and bioidentical hormones. Stem cells is kind of an interesting situation as well that I'll just briefly tell you. It's basically God's way of healing, and it's stem cells that are from donated moms that have decided to donate umbilical cord, and they use that blood, and they take just the stem cells out, so they're undifferentiated. You can inject them in any part of the body. We can do them IV, nebulized, and it's amazing what we've seen. And we truly tell them this is not surgical repair of the body, it's definitely God's way. So pretty interesting. Definitely different than what I do up here. But and then, so just my disclaimer, this is strictly for educational purposes and not intended for medical advice. Valuing rest. Super important, and don't dogs and cats and other animals know how to rest? So Genesis 2:2, and on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day for all his work which he had made. Definition of rest from the Bible dictionary. I thought this was interesting. I didn't do a compare contrast and show you what Webster's says. But physical, it says the sensation of motion or action of any kind and applicable to any body or being as rest from labor. And then mental, quiet, repose, a state free from motion or disturbance. And then the third is spiritual, a state of reconciliation to God. So we're going to kind of talk about those. So specifically about physical rest. 3 types of rest. Physical, mental, spiritual rest. Physical rest. Matthew 8:11-28. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Isn't that just something, I love that verse because so many times in life we can be overwhelmed and God promises that he'll give you rest. And so if we just, call upon him, that's a promise that we can actually claim, and he will give us that rest. So rest after physical exercise, rest during and after illness, and rest or sleep at night. In Psalms 55:6, it says, "And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest." And these three pictures just kind of depict those three types of physical rest. And we'll kind of go into detail with that. Physical rest after exercise or strenuous activity. The body needs recovery time, right? I think of, I'm not a marathoner, but definitely, people that do that type of work or that do physical labor type of work. Most recently, there was a group of us that went to Mexico, and I'm telling you, that was heavy physical work in heat. And I think I slept really good down there, because after working that type of, labor, you just need that rest, and your body knows it. So what happens during that recovery time? It promotes removal of waste products such as lactic acid buildup in the muscles. So for people that do those heavy or those races and marathons and things like that, they can get that lactic acid buildup in their muscles, and it can be very, very painful. And so taking that rest and that recovery period after helps the body to clean out those waste products. It allows the muscles to rest to prevent overuse injuries that could lead to tearing of the muscles and tendons. How many of you ever did sports when you were younger? Okay, so a few of us. And so it's so much easier to get injuries if you don't allow rest time between there. And I'll give you a little scenario. Probably, I think it was 2008. Anyway, I had gone to do to support breast cancer awareness, and I went to Seattle to do a 3-day walk where you were supposed to walk about 22 miles every day. And it was basically, I felt like that was a way that I could kind of support. My mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and so I was I felt so helpless. I thought, well, I can do this. I can go and walk. It's not like I'm having to do a marathon. I'm just walking. And so my friend and I, we walked, practicing or training, I guess you would call it. It didn't really feel like training because we were just walking, but we walked and walked and walked. And so the most that we actually ever walked in one setting was 4 hours. And I'm sure my neighbors thought we were crazy because we were just walking in a circle around and around and around, and just kept going through my neighborhood. And so I'm well, we're as prepared as we can be, right? So we get over there and went through Friday, and we're exhausted, but we were, fine, and no blisters. We were super happy about that. And that we walked for probably about 8 hours that day. And then the next day, which was Saturday, we got to probably about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then I felt just a deep ache in my thigh, in my hamstring. What is going on? All I've been doing is walking. It's not like I strained a muscle or something. And so I found a wall, and I put my leg up, and I was stretching it and just kind of massaging, and I couldn't stretch it out, and it just felt so weird. I'm this is very strange. And so we kept walking and got to the end of the day, and I think we walked 9 or 10 hours that day. And when I got back, I said, I think I'm going to just go to the medical tent and just make sure that everything's okay. Well, I got there, and they did an exam, and they said, you tore your hamstring. I'm how did I tear my hamstring? All I was doing was walking. But that's kind of a good example of overuse injury. I probably should have just, sucked it up and got in I forget what they call it, but got in the van and went back to the place. But I was there for a purpose. I felt like I needed to be there and do whatever I needed to do, for that day. Anyway, so that's kind of a little scenario, a little story about overuse injury. And then allowing the body to rebalance the blood chemistry that's needed to function properly, such as electrolytes. Again, like we were down in Mexico, it was super hot. We came from, I don't know, 20-degree weather and went down there and it was 85 and we were sweating. Well, I know I was sweating, but other people I'm sure were sweating too. When you sweat, you lose the sodium, you lose potassium, and it can make your body chemistry be off. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm kind of a little bit of a geek with science. So all your cells have like these little tiny, tiny pumps in every single cell. It's called a sodium-potassium pump. And if that gets off, then all kinds of things can go haywire in your system. So we were doing like IV liquid IV little packets that we would put in our water that would replenish that sodium and potassium that we were losing through that process. And then allow the body time to adjust for blood sugar fluctuations. Blood sugars will improve with exercise. So, I mean, it'll throw your blood sugars off, but that's a good thing because you want to improve your blood sugars if you have diabetes. Physical rest during and after illness. So not only with so this is the second physical rest part. So not only when you're doing exercise and that kind of thing, but also when you're ill. And so it allows body to focus its energy on fighting the infection instead of, if you're going to try to go run a marathon while you're sick, that's not going to go well because it's going to utilize too much that needs to be focused on getting you better. And then it allows the body to repair damaged cells. It minimizes additional stress on your body's system. And then the resources are put into healing the body instead of performing other activities. Like I said, like going and running a marathon and trying to, get the blood flowing to the lungs and the heart and everything else. So physical rest, the third type of physical rest is sleep. Super important. Few interesting things. Hold on, I'll get to that in a minute. So there was a study that was done that showed that, so this scientist wanted to do the study that was kind of confirming what he wanted to present. So he thought that 6 hours would be a good time, amount of time that would do all that's necessary in the body for repair and all that kind of stuff. And so he did this study thinking that that's what was going to come out of it. And actually, his study turned around and showed that 8 hours is actually really what we should be getting. That's the best amount of time for all what the body needs to be doing and accomplishing during that time frame. So some interesting statistics about sleep, which I didn't know some of these when I was researching this, that a third of our lifetime is spent sleeping. That's a lot of time. I don't know what the percentage, I wonder, there must be maybe another third is eating, and then another third working. I don't know. So anyway, that was what came up, and I was like, that's a lot of time to sleep. 33% of U.S. adults average less than 6 hours per night. I would probably venture to say a lot of those are females over the age of 45. In the U.S., 84 million people, or 1 in 3 adults, are sleep deprived. That's a lot of people, and that's 84 million just in the U.S. And so I wonder how many people in the rest of the world are sleep deprived as well. And so you think of some of these third world countries where maybe it's not super safe and they don't sleep because they're not in a safe environment or, whatever scenario they're living in. And only 10% of adults with sleep problems actually seek medical treatment. And so this was a statistic that I just wanted to share. I wouldn't say that you need, just if you have sleep problems, you don't necessarily need medical treatment. In fact, after doing my functional medicine, there's so much more things, better ways that you can treat sleep deprivation than with medications. Psalms 4:8, in peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone make me dwell in safety. So benefits of healthy sleep include, this was kind of something new that I came across in the last few years. The word is called autophagy, And it's a cellular process in which a cell engulfs and degrades its own damaged or unnecessary components. Basically, it helps remove and recycle damaged and dysfunctional cellular components so that you maintain that cellular homeostasis. What does that mean in layman's terms? So if you don't have that time frame of that fasting time frame, and so super important to try and get to the point where you can do 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating time, meaning that within 8 hours of time, you eat 2 meals, and 16 hours, part of that time you're sleeping, so 8 hours, ideally, during that 16-hour fast. So during that fasting time is when that body goes into that autophagy, and it gets rid of all those bad, those damaged cells or other cellular debris, and it works on eliminating that from the body. So if you eat like small frequent meals, and they'll probably touch on this on another day, possibly another weekend, but having that fasting time is where, that stuff the cellular debris gets kind of cleaned out of the body. So benefits of healthy sleep enhances memory and learning, enhances regulation of emotions, improves DNA repair, and that's where that autophagy comes in, increases neurotoxic elimination and cleaning of the neurotoxins, improves recovery time after illness or injury, improves response time, such as with driving. Oops, let's go back to that. And so, how many of you have had a little kid that needed a nap? So the whole emotion, the regulation of emotions. And so it's easy for them because they're kids, they're not inhibited, they'll just cry. Well, there's been times that I wanted to cry because I needed a nap, but I was like, I'm an adult and I need to be responsible. And so just realizing that can really affect us if we don't get the amount of sleep that we need. And you can always check it with a friend or a spouse. Am I being moody? Do I need more sleep? All right, the effects of impaired sleep. It impairs the immune system. It leads to slow response time, decrease and removal of toxins from the brain, increases risk for mental illness like anxiety and depressive disorders. Let me go back to the one previously, removing the toxins from the brain. How many of you have heard Barbara O'Neill's talk on the brain and all the, and like all of the little, why am I drawing a blank? So the branches that it sends off, it actually, when there are, and when there's negative emotions, she said there's like thorns that grow on, not the synapses. Neurons? Yeah, basically like on the neurons, okay? So during sleep is when the body goes and works on getting rid of those thorns, okay? So cleaning up and getting rid of all those neurotoxins. So super important for our brain health as well. And then worsens effects of traumatic brain injuries, and then can be attributed to aggressive behavior in children. Mental rest, super important. So we talked about the 3 types of physical rest that our bodies need. Now to discuss the second type of rest, which is mental rest. And then can you relate? Oh, it might be too tiny for you to see. It says, are you under a lot of stress lately, or have you always had 6 separate heartbeats? How to have mental rest. I wish my daughters were here. It says no phones or electronics for a time. It's super important. I mean, I would love to try and encourage you, if you're not already doing this, to at least have like meal times where you don't have phones with you. One needs to remove themselves from stressful situations. That's something you're going to have to figure out. If you're working in a stressful situation, how much is it worth to you? Is it worth getting a new job? Are there ways that you can deal with that stress? Taking breaks and saying, you know what, I need to take 15 minutes out. I need to just go. I would recommend going outside because it's amazing what nature can do to help with our brains. Or taking 20 minutes and walking. So, and I'll get to it, I think, a little bit further, the endorphins and what's released when you exercise for after 20 minutes. So leave work at work. Engage mentally with family or friends. I think sometimes it's hard, like my husband and I both work in the medical field, and so we come home and we'll talk work, and that probably doesn't help. But I mean, it does a little bit because we understand what the other one, because we both work in that field, and so we get the stressors and the craziness that we sometimes have to deal with. But it probably would be helpful to leave work at work, right, honey? Make time daily to unwind, such as going for a walk, a hike, work in the garden, play with a pet, sit and watch birds, etc. You name it, you figure it out, whatever works for you. I love coming home and sitting on my deck and watching the birds that come to my feeders. Sometimes it's actually stressful, depending on the time of year, because I don't like when they fight. And sometimes, like, my little hummingbirds will fight. You got the Rufus and then the other ones, and I'm like, be nice to each other. But that's one thing that I've missed, like, with my broken leg, is I haven't been able to get out and walk, because it brings that stress level down and just gives me a sense of peace. Plus, I know my dogs are super happy. Even if we don't even go the full walk, they are so happy that I'm there walking with them. And I think God, same with God, I think he can reach us when we're out in nature, and looks forward to being able to try and connect with us in that way as well. And so exercising for at least 20 minutes, which is the time it takes for your brain to release the happy chemicals, oxytocin and serotonin. This was kind of a new thing that I learned within the last 5 years. I didn't realize that time frame, and so that actually is scientific. So after you are actually exercising or walking for 20 minutes is when your brain finally goes, okay, and it does that, the same happy chemical like when a mom is nursing her baby. And so those are good chemicals for our mental health. And then meditating on God's word, memorizing Bible texts, so important and definitely helps with our mental health overall. And praying and journaling. One thing that I share with my patients that come in and see me, I see patients that are suicidal, super anxiety-ridden, depressed, and one of the things that I ask them to do is to journal and just get out and write for like 5 to 10 minutes before they go to bed. And it doesn't matter what they write, but they've actually scientifically proven that when you journal and actually write, like not on the computer, not on your phone, but you take out a pen or pencil and you journal, write in a book, that actually that will release it from your brain, from all those thoughts going around, because the brain thinks you took care of it and all you did was write it down. So kind of cool. I love when science like finally catches up to stuff that really they should have known a long time ago. In Isaiah 26:3, it says, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee." And Philippians 4:6-9, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So we talked about physical rest, and then we talked about mental rest, and now the third type is spiritual rest. To enter God's rest means to be at peace with God, to be free from guilt and worry about sin, to find peace in one's relationship with God, and to experience the rest that God promises. In Matthew 11:29, it says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls." I love this text too, because I think of, if you guys have seen a yoke on 2 oxen, and what I didn't know is that they would get a stronger ox and then a weaker one, or one that they were training. And I envision that with God, as he is the stronger one, obviously, and just yoking us with him, and that he's actually leading us and training us. And I just love that vision of what that entails. So Christ was speaking to every human being, whether they knew it or not, or whether we know it or they know it or not now. All are weary and heavy laden. All of us are weighed down with burdens that only Christ can remove. And I mean, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I'm sure every single one of us has burdens, and Christ can remove those for us. And the heaviest burden that we bear is sin. If we were left to bear this burden, it would crush us. The sinless one has taken our place. That's found in Ministry of Healing. How do we find spiritual rest? Practicing gratitude. And I have to think of, this made me think of, I thought it was a saying that was from the movie Pollyanna. How many of you have heard of Pollyanna? I watched it when I was like super young, and I still watch it. I love it because she just had such a positive attitude all the time. And I mean, what an awful situation that she had. She was in the mission field, I believe, with her family, and her parents died, and she ended up with this grumpy old aunt, and they were all grumpy too, the people that worked for her, and how she turned that whole town around, and really showed gratitude and just being happy for what she did have. She's like, so we were grateful that I had, what was it that she got, like boys' pants or something instead of a doll, but she's like, at least I got pants or something. Anyway, it was just like how grateful she was, and how much we can take that to heart and realize that we need to be grateful for what we have. And then setting healthy boundaries, learn from creation, practice contentment, just being content with what we have. Release our worries, enjoy God's creation, learning from Jesus' example, spend time in prayer, attend worship services or Bible study groups, and read books about spiritual rest. Does this picture not show rest? Doesn't that just like look peaceful? John 14:27, another one of my favorites. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. The second part of what we're going to talk about tonight is valuing relationships. The Bible consistently emphasizes love as the foundation of all relationships, both with God and with others. And so, just briefly, relationships doesn't necessarily mean husband and wife. It means friends. It means a parent with a daughter. A parent and a daughter, or husband and, what am I trying to say? Father and daughter, anyway, relationships all around you, friendships. And so John 13:34, it says, a new command I give you, love each other as I have loved you. So you must love one another. And 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, charity suffereth long and is kind. Itself is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth. And this is considered the love chapter in the Bible. I recommend that you try to read that at least twice a week, if not daily. But it's 1 Corinthians 13. There's just a lot of good stuff in there. I just gave you a brief overview of it. So benefits of healthy relationships: longer life, stress management, greater sense of purpose, happier life, healthier behaviors, intimacy, maintain a healthy heart, mental health, faster healing. And this is all scientifically proven, apparently. So this is all science, and emotional support, natural pain control, less anxiety, lower blood pressure, better physical form and fitness, better productivity, and shared responsibilities. So again, this is not just between a husband and wife, but like other relationships when you have friends that you're close with, those can also be just as effective at helping, to deal with like emotional support or, things like that. So serving one another. The Bible encourages Christians to use their freedom to serve one another in love. Galatians 5:13, for you are called to freedom, my brothers and sisters, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another in love. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. So this, I just threw this in. I did a study, a brief study, and during COVID, we were trying to connect. There's a group, kind of like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, through the Seventh Adventist Church that called Pathfinders. And so we were trying to keep Pathfinders connected. And a lot of Washington was very, very shut down, different than what we were doing here in Idaho. So here, we weren't as shut down as some of the other states. And so we still tried to do online like camporees, where we would have them pitch their tent in their yard, and they could Zoom in. We would do Zoom calls, and so we tried to keep them connected. Well, some of the time, a little bit later, probably around 2022, or maybe 23, we actually had a group come over to Camp Maivanen, and there was so much disconnect, and people were so scared, like the 6-foot distance. It was very sad. And coming from a Christian standpoint, where I know that God made us relational people, and hugging is amazing at what it can do for you emotionally and physically, in a healthy way, of course, okay? So we actually did this little kind of icebreaker where I used my daughter as an example, and I said we need to hug and be present with each other, but hug sideways if you need to, as, kind of just a little bit safer as far as if it's with a mixed company, okay? Because these were teenagers. And so basically, what I found in literature was that the benefits of hugs. So it says hugs don't just happen between spouses or those romantically involved, but they can be between family members or friends. You may recall many years ago when there were preemie twins in the UK that were separated into different isolates, and one started to die. As they were losing baby, they didn't know what to do. And finally someone said, why don't you take the baby and, can you make sure that's plugged in for me back there? Oh, it is plugged in. Yeah, for some reason it says it's going low. Anyway, someone said, why don't we just last ditch effort, take little Dylan, I think it was, that's dying, and put him with Daniel. And so they brought the other baby into the isolate with the other preemie, and he started to thrive. And what a huge example of that we really, we need to be connected with people. And sometimes physical connection is needed. And so that was kind of just my little story that I wanted to share. And I think that's happened multiple times, that this was a certain story that I pulled up. And basically the video that I was watching of the mom, the babies were now like a year old. And so both of them thriving. So I thought that's pretty awesome. We serve an amazing God. So the power of hugs and healthy relationships: the stress reduction, pain reduction, lowering the blood pressure and heart rate, improved sleep, boosting immune system, increased feelings of connection, improved mood, reduced loneliness and isolation, and increased empathy and compassion. And there's one young lady in our church that she loves hugs, and I think some of us need more than others, but she knows what she needs, and she comes and gets hugs, and it's just awesome. So no inhibition with that. How to value healthy relationships. Be intentional with the time spent with those relationships you care about. God, family, and friends, and hopefully in that order. Nurture healthy relationships, as this will provide you a strong community support system, which in turn provides peace of mind, physical health, and mental well-being. Shift your focus upward and outward towards God and in service for Him. When we focus on others, it takes the focus away from us and our problems. How many of us, and not a show of hands, but I will speak for myself, it was truly amazing going on that mission trip because the focus was not on anything other than what we were there to accomplish, and we were there on God's errands. And yes, I was away from work, but it was so satisfying. I mean, I was working super hard. I was super hot and sweaty, but it was so satisfying because just seeing the tears in the church members that we built these churches for, and realizing that God loves these people like He loves me, and how we were able to help them. And I kind of feel like we were blessed more than they were. I'm sure they were blessed as well, but it just sometimes feels like, it was really great to be in service for God. Schedule time weekly with family and friends, free of phones, TV, work, and other distractions. I think the big word here is the intentional. It's super important for us to really be intentional about the time that we spend. Learn a Bible text to memorize, bringing you closer to God and improving your relationships with our Creator. The key takeaway, healthy relationships take time, whether it's with God, spending time in His Word, praying, or with our spouse or our children or grandparents or parents, friends. If you don't take that time to reach out to your friends and keep that going, those friendships will kind of fizzle away. Value healthy relationships. It may save your life. I love dogs. Any questions?
Someone should come up with a question. There you go, Dee. Since she's a captive, she can't leave the stage quickly. So.
Well, I could try what I did this morning.
So, what about people who, you've done everything, but you're trying to connect? I'm talking about people who are like single, and some things are out of their control. Mm-hmm. How can you find a healthy way to fix that need in you, that very drive in you for connection with the opposite sex? And that's going to be a very hard thing to answer.
That is very hard, and I don't have the answers, but I would say prayer, prayerfully share with God the concerns, and He has a million ways to be able to fix those needs.
I prayed 30 years. I pray every day.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for that. I would say focusing on, asking God what you need to do, like if He has something to change in you.
I've done that.
And done that. Okay. I don't have a great answer for that. I would love to say that I'm like an expert in relationships, but I'm not.
It was a very hard question.
It is.
What about just patience, teaching you patience, and just maybe it's not the time. Maybe He wants you to work on something on yourself. I mean, I don't know, but maybe since you've been praying and doing everything for a while, maybe it's a waiting game. That's probably not very consoling, is it? But I just... Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, I just know some, me, he makes me wait.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Whoops, yep.
We really appreciate. And so what, if you were going to set yourself a goal from something you've heard that Lana shared, what kind of goals might you think of that you could set? Yes, Terry.
Try not to isolate as much as I do.
Okay, trying not to isolate as much. How many of you are in the less than 8-hour sleep category? So,
I had some other things, if he can get it plugged in, just like prescriptions for helping with like sleep.
okay. Is it just that?
But that must not be working.
Matt's going to maybe find us a solution. Maybe that outlet does not work. I don't know.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It was kind of bonus stuff if you wanted to kind of
Sure, we'll
look
take
at it, but yeah, my computer needs sleep.
Is it coming back to life?
Yeah. Any other questions?
I like the cell phone thing, getting away from the cell phone. I think I'm gonna make time to just say, I have a friend who put a timer on, so if she used more than 2 hours a day, the cell phone was shut off.
That's a great idea.
Hmm.
There's a new app where everything goes gray,
Yeah,
and it only allows you to do certain things.
that's a great idea because I think it's so easy to get going on your phone. I mean, I use my phone a lot for work, so I kind of need it. But as far as like the social media stuff or things like that, it just wastes your time. Not I'm speaking for myself, and so having something like that would be really awesome. So those are just the references from what I talked about tonight. And then bonus treatment to improve sleep, establishing a bedtime routine. And this is what I try to do with my patients as well. If they're having a hard time sleeping, is going through several of these where you just figure out, okay, I'm going to go to bed at X amount of time every time I go to bed. Trying to keep it as routine as possible. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Use bed for sleep. Stop blue light exposure at least 1 hour prior to going to bed. Dim the lights. There's, I don't think I have them on. No. So there are the blue light blocker glasses that you can get that are supposed to be better when you're looking at your computer or whatever. And then just turning off computer, TV, phones at least an hour before you go to bed. Sleeping in a cooler room because your body kind of needs that slow down, kind of cool down time, and you just sleep better when the room is cooler. And then no TV, computers. Limit power naps to no more than 30 minutes if you're going to sleep in the afternoon. Some people do that. My daughter has, I can probably talk about her because she's not here right now, but she will come home. She has to get up at 4:45, 5, and be at work at 6. And she comes home and she's exhausted because she has this bad habit of going to bed late because she's texting her friends. I wish she would listen to what I have to say, but Anyway, and so then she sleeps for 2 to 3 hours, and it's like, girl. And she was with us down in Mexico, and she slept great. She wasn't on her phone, praise God, because we were working all day long. And anyway, so back to bad habits. And then attempt to get ready, daily exposure to the sunlight. Sun, we came back and it was gray, and I'm like, ugh, I'm going to be jet lagged for a long time until I can get the sun. So the sun, there's something with the back of your legs where it will reset your circadian rhythm. So if you do fly and get jet lag, when you come back, you should try to put some shorts on and get the sun to the back of your legs, because for whatever reason, that's where it helps your circadian rhythm to reset. And then avoiding alcohol within 3 hours of bedtime, stop after dinner snacking, maintain adequate water intake throughout the day. I usually tell my patients 8 to 10 glasses of water every day, but really it's going to be a bit variable. It should be half your weight of water in ounces per day. So let's say you have a 200-pound man, 100 ounces of water is what your intake should be on a daily basis. If you're exercising or doing more strenuous activity and you're losing water through sweat, then you need to drink more. If you drink caffeine, I always tell my patients, if you have a 16 ounce of caffeine, that's on top of, you're drinking another thing of 16 ounce of water to replenish that, because caffeine is actually a diuretic. And so it's making you lose that fluid. So not only are you at the 8 to 10 every day, but then you're however many, 16, 32. There's a lot of people that drink a lot of coffee, like a whole pot before noon. So they're going to have to drink a lot of water. And then maintain, journal at night for 5 to 10 minutes to get your brain to shut down. We talked about that earlier, and that's it.